Are we in the golden age of RPGs? Let's find out.
Baldur's Gate 3 is proof that we're in a golden age of RPGs.
In early August, Larian Studios released Baldur's Gate 3 after a lengthy period in early access. It quickly became one of 2023's breakout successes, garnering rave reviews and hundreds of thousands of concurrent players on Steam. To some observers, it seemed like an upset that an unapologetically dense and...
Also, Asmon, you really need to fix your sound levels. Like it's getting worse and worse by the day.
old school RPG like Baldur's Gate 3 should find such mainstream success. To me,
I actually don't think it has anything to do with like the RPG. I think it has to do with the scope of what you can do.
though, Baldur's Gate 3 is more proof that we're in the midst of
I think it's just a good game, and that's all it has to do with anything.
a new golden age for one of gaming's oldest genres.
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think that people love RPGs, but the reason why Baldur's Gate 3 is so successful is because it's a fundamentally good game. It's the same reason why, for example, Street Fighter 6
He watches my videos. He knows the points that he's supposed to make. Good boy!
is very successful. Because before Street Fighter 6, I feel like fighting games really weren't very popular for a while. But Street Fighter 6 comes out, and it just blows everything else out of the water, and now people are really excited about fighting games again. That's how I think things go.
Are they? I think fighting games are as popular as ever. I have heard a little bit of fuss about Street Fighter 6, but that's pretty much the same as any Mortal Kombat ever gets released or whatever happens, you know? It's fine. It's a genre, a niche genre.
Is that if a good game comes out, there are a lot of people that will try to play it. Bad take, Asma. Revitalizes the game. Are we really going to pretend that Street Fighters... I feel like... This is my perspective, okay? I feel like Street Fighter 6 has had a much bigger splash in like general gaming than any other fighting game in probably the last 5 or 10 years. It has been massively fucking popular.
Is it? I don't know. Again, I don't think that's true, but I could be wrong because I haven't followed it. You always hear about this new amazing fighting game that's coming out because everyone's super hyped, and then kind of not much happens.
Led by Studio...
Smash isn't a fighting game. It's not a... It's a fighting game, it is.
Well,
but
yes,
it's not a traditional fighting game like Tekken, Soul Calibur,
okay, I guess that's true.
Street Fighter, Tekken, etc. It's not the same thing.
Those like CD Projekt, From Software, Bethesda, and now Larian Studios, the role-playing genre has lately managed to infiltrate virtually every part of the gaming consciousness. Baldur's Gate 3 and Diablo 4 are two of 2023's biggest games.
I mean, yes, but in such different ways, it's insanity.
Xbox has seen fit to acquire no fewer than 3 dedicated RPG developers in Exile Entertainment, Obsidian, and Bethesda, with Blizzard potentially on the way.
The Lords of Hell are coming to devour our world.
Even games that have next to nothing to do with RPGs can't resist borrowing from the genre in order to bolster the gameplay bona fides a bit. Developers I've spoken with have ascribed the genre's success to the rise of streaming, pointing out how the variety of outcomes...
I think streaming is a huge factor, and streaming games, like, there are some games that get completely made by YouTube videos or by streams.
True.
I think a really good example of this is Among Us. Among Us is massive, and the reason why it's massive is because people...
Is it still massive, by the way? I suppose there's probably a dedicated player base left to it, but is it still massive? Like, it was, like, the most massive thing for a while, but, you know.
Started streaming it, and then more people streamed it, and more people streamed it. Yeah, Soda, right? And Fall Guys is another one. Only Up, Vampire Survivors. Lots of these games happen, and they blow up because of streaming. That's why these companies pay streamers, like, $50,000 an hour to play a video game. It's because sometimes it pays off.
Yeah.
in any given RPG makes for good content. Others point to the way that World of Warcraft mainstreamed color-coded loot, making it easier for players to step into more complicated experiences. One way or another, though, we seem to have entered a unique period for RPGs, one I wouldn't have predicted a decade ago. Back in 2014, I interviewed Obsidian Entertainment director Josh Sawyer about Pillars of Eternity. a then upcoming revival of the isometric RPG subgenre that had been greenlit as part of the first wave of Kickstarter projects. Sawyer recalled the chilly reception afforded PC RPGs in the mid to late 2000s. Isometric RPGs just died for a very long time, Sawyer said at the time.
I mean, this is, I think, true for absolutely everything. By the way, 20 years ago, there was this interesting thing called shooter games, single player with a story at their base. Yeah, that died for a while, then it came back. I think everything here is like, okay, it's really popular, everyone plays it, then it dies down, no one's interested in it, then it resurfaces at some point. Because these concepts are good. It's just the fact that people get bored of them, and then they don't want to play them. But after a while, everyone forgets about it, everyone forgets the last time they even played a game like that, and then they just play it, and it's the best thing ever. Again, it's great.
The consensus in that period among Western publishers was that old-school RPGs were too dense and esoteric for the average gamer. Mainstream developers...
It's also, I think, because the scope of them was not interesting. Like, I think the reason why Baldur's Gate 3 is compelling for people is because you can fuck the characters, kick squirrels, and fuck bears.
Yep, pretty much.
You can do whatever you want in the game. That's why it's interesting.
True.
Like BioWare stripped out RPG elements from Mass Effect 3, while older developers simply faded away. Some developers claimed that RPG elements as we know them today were
Fable's
relics
like
of a bygone era, and that genres were...
See, this is why you literally never play on console, because this is what happens. Disgusting.
growing up. It wasn't until the advent of Kickstarter that classics like Pillars of Eternity, Wasteland 2, and Shadowrun began to find their footing thanks to the backing of dedicated fans who never really went away.
Was Shadowrun actually a success?
Out of this period arose another developer, little known at the time, but making major waves today, Larian Studios.
I had no idea that Divinity was actually a Kickstarter. That's crazy.
No, actually, same.
As someone who has been writing and podcasting about RPGs since 2009, I can't point to any one turning point, but I will say that things have felt different since The Witcher 3 made it big in 2015.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Prior to The Witcher 3's release, CD Projekt Red was perceived, in the US at least, as a cult developer that focused on niche RPG experiences.
Yeah.
It blew up in part
Was it a big turning point? Yeah, I think this one was fucking huge, man.
Probably
Like, of course.
true, yeah.
I mean, everybody knows The Witcher.
I mean, everything gets considered niche until it gets a bigger audience, and then suddenly it blows up. Like, why are we currently describing basic things that happen in the world as something special? Everything is niche until it blows up. Is there a different situation? Does something instantaneously start huge from nothing and then become smaller? No, there are things that are big and become smaller, but not out of nothing. I don't get these points.
because it was released on consoles as well as PC, going on to sell a staggering 60 million copies. The Witcher 3's strengths are well documented. It was huge, bigger than almost any open world game at that time, and it was beautiful. It was a choice-driven experience with a multitude of memorable and multi-layered side quests. Most important of all,
the most important of all is just pay attention to people have choices in these games. You need some rails so people don't go completely off, and these games have it, but you need to give people some choice, and not Fallout 4 choice. Yes, no, angry still doesn't change the outcome, angrier still doesn't change the outcome. You know? And the yes, no also don't change the outcome because it's Fallout.
it tapped into the hunger for a deeper open world experience that was on offer at the time.
That girl was such a thought. I read about like what happened in the game. What
I
a
mean,
thought. Wow.
She literally can create a cushion to fall onto if she kind of feels like it.
Oh.
Kiss Tres, fucking slap her.
That's true.
Players didn't just want to roam a beautifully realized fantasy world, they wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
It's an experience embedded deep in the role-playing genre's DNA. As far back
Makes
as the
sense.
1980s, RPGs were striving to create a sense of total immersion through fully reactive worlds. Ultima 4 featured a free-roaming,
long time ago.
choice-driven experience that in hindsight felt far ahead of its
Wow,
time.
yeah.
Later, Bethesda would try and capture that same type of free-roaming experience with its own games before finally breaking out with Skyrim, another highly influential RPG often spoken of in the same
As Todd Howard said, Skyrim was amazing. Endless side quests. And then every single one of them is unique. Oh, wait, no, he lied about everything. And I love the best part about Skyrim is that it's a game that was 10 years ago, still a game that had graphics from 10 years ago. The Bethesda fanboys are the literal highest plague amongst society.
breath as The Witcher 3.
Yeah, I would say even Skyrim is probably... I would say, like, it might be more influential than The Witcher. Because, like, Skyrim came out in, like,
Yeah,
2011, and people are still playing it. And also, like, you've got to keep in mind that Skyrim, like, Oblivion, which is the game that came before that, Oblivion was really popular, too.
Yeah.
But it's like Skyrim just took it to a completely new level. And Morrowind was well known, too, yeah. Oh, this is where I quit. Yeah, I quit the game here. I said, this shit's taking too long, I'm tired.
And one that has now been officially released on basically every platform ever. Along with Dark Souls and a handful of others, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Skyrim and The Witcher 3 are two of the most influential games of the past decade. Since then, we've seen a remarkable explosion of RPGs of all types. Avant-garde experiences like Disco Elysium have driven the genre forward,
Yeah,
while
people want
Fire
me to
Emblem
play
Three
that.
Houses has proven that turn-based tactics RPGs still have a big audience on platforms like the Nintendo
True.
Switch.
One thing that makes turn-based games good is that you don't have to have any level of dexterity whenever you're playing them. So, like, if you're a 31-year-old boomer and your hands don't work anymore, well, it's okay, because you can play a turn-based game and you're still a winner. Yeah, it's all strategy. Yep, strategy and
Pathfinder,
planning.
Wrath of the Righteous, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy XIV, and Path of Exile
Damn.
have
Oh, yeah,
all
I heard
found
about
creative
this game.
and financial success of their own.
Dude, playing anything on console, do you people even care about going to heaven, not hell? Like, geez, Louis.
Elsewhere, the likes of Genshin Impact and
Yeah.
Honkai Star Rail continue to be big business.
Time to say bye.
Isn't Honkai Star Rail actually, like, kind of failing?
I think that's why, by the way, people are interested, though. Like, it's like you have a lot of this, too. I think also, like, a big factor is I think anime has gotten way more popular in, like, the last
True.
5 or 10 years. And I think that that type of genre of anime stuff has also gotten way more popular. So, like, in a different way that, like, people are more willing to consume content for, like, anime about stuff like this, they'd be more willing to play games like this, too. It's becoming mainstream now? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, one of the things that actually made Cyberpunk come back from the dead was Edge Runners. Seriously, that thing popped, and suddenly the interest in cyber what's the game called again? Cybertruck, whatever. You know the game. That game popularity just went so much up that moment Edge Runners dropped. Cyberpunk 2077, there we go, that stupid thing. Yeah, Edge Runners dropped it and it's like, whoop! Yeah, 200k players were playing it or some stupid thing like that because of Edge Runners.
RPGs fit well into what I might call gaming's social media era. Despite their focus on single player, they practically beg you to share your characters and choices with your friends in the world.
Oh, yeah.
They feel meaty and worthwhile in a world of $70 games, filled with secrets and lore that can fill pages and pages of wikis. By the way, check out IGN.com's wonderful guides on Baldur's Gate 3. And oh, they're horny. So very, very horny.
And
Fine.
that's,
Important.
again, going back to Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail.
Fire Fire Emblem Three Houses alone yields some 44,000 matches on Archive of Our Own, a popular fanfiction site. In a medium where success is so often dictated by how thirsty players are for any given romantic pairing, RPGs are king. Baldur's Gate 3 is in some ways the embodiment of all these trends, and in other ways, it's a unicorn. It has the type of densely written, choice-driven quests that made The Witcher 3 so popular, and it's horny to boot. It prizes open-world exploration, and it's the most beautifully presented big-budget isometric RPG since Dragon Age Origins. Crucially,
I mean, if we isolate it to such a genre, yeah, but you know, Baldur's Gate doesn't really have the best of the best worldly graphics that has ever existed, the truth is.
Though, it's not an open-world action-adventure game like so many of the other games I've mentioned to this point. Baldur's Gate 3 is a classical RPG in the truest sense of the word. An adventure built firmly.
I mean, this is like basically, I remember games like this were super popular in like 2001 and stuff. 2002. There were so many of these games.
On the genre bedrock of Dungeons and Dragons. Circana analyst Matt Piscatella notes that most CRPGs, even big successes like Divinity Original Sin 2, have to work hard to crack the list of the top 50 best-selling games. Clearly, Baldur's Gate
Well, obviously you have to work to get there.
3 has broken into the mainstream in a way that no other CRPG recently has. Even when titles like Baldur's Gate 2, Fallout, and Neverwinter Nights were a bigger part of the gaming landscape, I'm not sure we saw a breakout quite like this, at least.
Neverwinter Nights, that takes me back. Please don't leave me. You know, in the city. Ah, good times.
So far.
I think there's also like clearly a cultural element of it too, where people are saying like, well, you know, we're tired of battle passes and microtransactions, so a game comes out and it doesn't have that. I think that has like an intrinsic value for itself.
Nah, that's just wishful thinking. There is literally almost no persons out there who are looking at a game and saying, ah yes, this has a battle pass, I will not buy it because battle passes are evil. Maybe there's one kook out there who does it like that, okay, maybe. And yeah, all of us are looking, oh, this has a battle pass, that kind of sucks. Yeah, that's true, sure, 100%. But almost no one in the world is looking at a game and not buying it because it does have a battle pass. You know, the fact that Baldur's Gate is finished is a great thing. And certainly people like that. But let's not kid ourselves. No one cares at the end of the day about this thing. It's just wishful thinking.
It's the same reason why I think Vampire Survivors was partially popular. Is because it was a cheap game, it was simple, and that's it.
Ella told me over email. But given the expansion of
I'm
the
not
video
saying that's the reason, but it's a component.
Game market since then, and how popular other genres have become, it's refreshing to see a game like this get this kind of adoption and play.
As you place your hand on the pod, you hear something. A presence connected to the pod, commanding the person inside to change.
It's fascinating to watch a game like Baldur's Gate 3 find genuine mainstream success. I expected it to do well, but when I hear even non-gamers ask what Baldur's Gate is all about, I have to sit up and take notice. Could this game have even been made in 2011? I'm not sure. I see it as a natural continuation of the shift that began a decade ago, where indies, crowd-funded games, and some Japanese studios started pushing for experiences different from the BioWare and Bethesda formats that dominated the 2000s. Muses Felipe Pepe, author of the CR.
Well, it's because they're more, they're more unique. I think one of the big problems with like Western gaming is like it's not like woke stuff or anything like that. It's about things being extremely formulaic, and I think people just get tired of that because if people can realize that they're inside of a formula, there's like a degree of escapism that's removed.
True.
Like you no longer feel like you're part of a fantasy universe if you.
That is true, though I don't agree with the start what he's saying. I think people just wanted to try new things because everyone understands making something new is kind of cool, and that's kind of it. It didn't just magically start at 2000, whatever the girl said it started. Nah, people were trying to make their own things forever.
You can predict what's going to happen based off of what other games you've played that are the same.
RPG book. Dark Souls, XCOM, Banner Saga, FTL, Shadowrun, Legend of Grimrock, Darkest Dungeon, and many others helped expand the horizons of what RPGs could be.
Yep.
Obsidian's Josh Sawyer mentioned how Divinity Original Sin convinced them to put turn-based combat into Pillars of Eternity 2. It's a conversation. I don't think you could have successfully released Disco Elysium, Citizen Sleeper, or Baldur's Gate 3 back in 2011.
I think
Maybe.
also, like, back then, being able to have a game that played like Dark Souls was impressive and amazing on its own. Like, I think that you have to keep in mind that in, like, 2005, most computer games were fucking garbage.
2005,
Same as in 2008. Most computer games sucked. Like, they didn't play well, the graphics were bad, they weren't programmed properly, they were just shitty games.
Yeah, most games
So, yeah.
were shit.
I think that, like, of course, back then, like, there was a value that was attached to just simply having a working game that plays like Dark Souls. But now people are more used to that. WoW was good? Yeah, WoW was good, and that's why it dominated the market. That's a good example. That's what I'm saying. Is that WoW was so good that I think that, like, one of the big reasons why WoW dominated the market for games is because of how well it played. It was massive.
But this is just basic logic. Something is good, it's gonna perform good. That's just how it works in the gaming world. People see something's fun, people see something's good, they start playing it. Admittedly, yeah, nowadays you definitely, because previously in 2005 and whatever, people did talk about, what they are playing, okay? You didn't buy Mafia 2 because you heard it's an amazing game. No, you bought Mafia because your neighbor was playing it, okay? You bought games on that aspect. Nowadays, you definitely don't need some kind of, like, YouTubers playing it, Twitch people playing it, all of that stuff.
Certain zeitgeist is necessary. However we got here, Baldur's Gate 3 seems like the surest sign yet that RPGs are having a moment. Rarely has the genre felt this vibrant, this ambitious, this diverse. Baldur's Gate 3 is as old school as a CRPG can.
I really don't think it matters that Baldur's Gate is an RPG. It's just a good game. Like, nowadays, there are people who play mainly shooters, but but those people also play other types of games. For example, city builders. People have their, like, main genre that they enjoy the most, but it's not like they're not gonna play any other games. So, Baldur's Gate being a good RPG means nothing. Baldur's Gate being a good game means everything.
Get, but it's also much more than a nostalgia play. And with so many great studios at the peak of their powers, it seems as if the best is yet to come.
When the screaming stops and your mind is gone, the rest, perhaps, is silence.
Oh, what the fuck?
For more on Baldur's Gate 3, check out our review currently in progress.
Yeah.
And for everything you need to know about the rest of the video game
Enix? I
world,
think Square Enix
stick
too.
with IGN.
Well, soon we're gonna have the fun times of Starfield. We're so close.
Squaresoft dominated JRPGs too? Well, yeah, of course it did. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying, is that I think people want games that feel immersive and give escapism. And the more that games don't give escapism or anything like that, and the more that they're built...
I don't even think escapism is honestly the word that we should be choosing here. Because, I mean... I can spend 10 hours playing a game where I'm just a giant bear picking berries maybe and just enjoy myself. It's not really escapism because, how can you apply escapism to roleplay as a giant bear eating berries? But it's just fun, People want to lose themselves into something that they are playing or doing and are having fun for like a day or whatever. It's not really escapism, because escapism implies also to a certain degree that your life is bad shit and sad. So, you know, I wouldn't use the word escapism.
Built around like battle passes and other things like that. Not all games need to give escapism, but the games that do give escapism have like that extra value. And I think that's what people want out of an RPG. People don't want a they don't want a battle pass in a game like Baldur's Gate.
Okay, you're too obsessed with the battle pass. Relax, not everything is D4. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.